Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday Build. This is episode 1.44, and today we're going to be discussing the topic, Don't Just Set It and Forget It, Navigating Setup and Maintenance Considerations in Automation, featuring Gavel, Zapier, Airtable, and more. My name is Brittany Hernandez, and I am a lawyer, a professional no-code, low-code developer, a legal tech educator, and the global ambassador to law schools for Gavel. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this particular topic is I recently got some notifications from Zapier about a connection not working, and another thing happened where I was using this other tool and I had sent kind of a demo site that I created with a client portal to someone, and when I checked back, it wasn't working, and like all these things. So sometimes it's helpful to understand that when we're using these different tools, something can go wrong, and just kind of know that going in. And so I'm going to give you a couple of different strategies and tips to think about when you are setting up your different automations and using these various platforms. So the first one is to understand, accept, and plan. So what I mean by this is understand that technology is constantly evolving, and the platforms that we use, whether they be no code that are smaller and kind of startups, or larger, more enterprise grade that have been around for a long time, they're constantly iterating, adding new features and changing things. I know Zapier has made a lot of updates lately to their interface, and they've added a lot of AI elements. They have more of a visual platform now, from the kind of creating actions and triggers and so on. But just know that when these different feature updates get released, sometimes things can break and you can get different bugs. So just understand the nature of what we're dealing with is a constantly moving environment of tech where you'll see constant changes that get pushed. And with every push, I believe there's a chance for a bug, because maybe in their quality assurance steps, something got missed, and now we have some kind of error and break. So also too, if you consider, if you use Airtable a lot, for example, is the deprecation of API keys and the institution of personal access tokens instead. So just knowing that things are constantly changing, you really need to be aware of what's going on with each platform that you use, staying up to date with their different newsletters and so on, so that you can constantly be kind of up to date on what's going on with each of these platforms. So just accept that there will sometimes be bugs and disruptions in service when you're dealing with technology, because it's just the nature of how these things are. And also, especially when things are linked together, when you have one platform working in tandem, or integrated with or connected via a third-party tool for these all to work, is that the more we add in the setup process, the more we need to look after and maintain these different connections and platforms. So the last piece of this is the first one is understand, accept, and plan. So when we think about planning, we need to just go over the fact that when we're in the initial stages of planning how to build something or how to connect different automations and platforms together, we want to reduce as much as possible how many different linkages there are, because for every new link, there's a new chance for it to break. So one of the things I like to do is look for different platforms that have a lot of in-house kind of automations and connections. So what I mean by that is, for example, in Airtable and things like Smart Suite, they have their own sort of internal automations that you can use, some that are like third-party integrations as well, but it will be kind of an in-house Zapier, you could say. It doesn't do it for every single thing, but it would make certain things happen inside the tool itself, which is really, really powerful. So it can send an email for you automatically without you having to go outside of that platform. You just need to create an automation that does these things. When you set it up, though, you also want to make sure that you consider and maybe note somewhere that you've created this automation, or just have it visible for yourself, or like review them on an annual or monthly basis, because you want to make sure that you're seeing when you make a change to something that you aren't affecting something else. And also that if you don't want an automation to run anymore because your own business has iterated and changed, then you want to make sure that you're thinking about how you can keep up to date with these different automations. I recently did a kind of an audit of my own automations that were set up in Zapier and turned off the ones I'm no longer using, and deleted any ones that I don't need anymore, but made sure from that perspective, before you start to turn things off and delete things and move things around, make sure that you understand the ripple effects of what that will do for your overall business strategy. So for number 2, review, and this really is around settings for notifications. So for example, I wouldn't have known that there was a problem with the Airtable Zapier connection if I didn't have my notifications on and for error alerts. So for example, this is kind of the flow of emails that I got the other day. So this is from October 26th. First, I get an email from Airtable saying that the Zapier third-party integrations access to my account has been automatically revoked due to security concerns around refresh token usage. So this piece right here has literally been like a nightmare recently, because this is part of the reason why I was saying with the other website and client portal that I built out, things were kind of getting not coming through, is that Airtable's connection to this particular tool was kept getting the automatically revoked, this kind of like token usage thing. So this issue has been really frustrating because I use Airtable for a lot of things that are important. And so it's frustrating to see that it keeps causing issues in some of my other things, disconnecting from Zapier and disconnecting from other tools. So just know though that I wouldn't have known about it unless I got an alert or if I kind of had this flow. And so one of the things we can do is that next I got an email from Zapier saying you need to reconnect your account because we noticed that we encountered an authentication problem. Then I can go into my account and just double check what's going on and see if I need to change anything, and where you can kind of see what's going on in your account and make sure that you're mostly to just like make sure that your error notifications like that are on, is you can go over to settings, and then from settings, go under email notifications. And then there's a section called error notification. So it says you can customize their frequency, or you can just go here. And then from here, you can see you have a default notification rule, and you can set the frequency like an hourly summary, never, or immediately. So make sure it's either immediately or, on some hourly summary, etc. And then you can also, if you have a particular plan tier, you can create custom rules. But in this particular case, I just want to have some notification that something's going on if anything happens. So later I got the message saying, we received an email earlier today about your Airtable integration, blah, blah, blah. We have re-enabled your integration and rerun all of your held tasks, and no further action is required. So it will sometimes work itself out, but it could cause a disruption in your service that causes some issue for some reason. So another one was, for example, that people have to do maintenance. So one of the things I'll add here is maintenance. So one, for example, was Thinkific, and they had to do a major system update. And so they just needed to do a lot of critical, implementations. And so they had to go dark basically for 8 hours or something. And so they tried to do it at a time where they have the lowest amount of users on the platform. But it meant that your students weren't able to access their course material. It meant that you weren't able to accept payments. It was a whole thing. So just understand and maybe plan around it. And I actually had a course launch coming up a day before they were doing, or no, a day after they were doing that. So I was a little bit nervous because I needed to get new students and accept payments in that week and in those few days. So it's helpful that they were able to alert me about it though, so I could kind of try to find a workaround and a plan around people going to the site and using this particular payment tool that wasn't going to actually work during that period. So just know that sometimes they're going to have to be down for maintenance. Sometimes they're going to have to, implement some new product updates and features, and that might cause some disruptions to your service. It doesn't mean that it's oh, it's terrible. and I never want to use it again. It's just that, like, that's just the nature, like we said, of understanding that tech is constantly changing. They're making updates, they're trying to make it better for you. So you just have to kind of go in with a little bit more grace and understand that they're constantly trying to improve the product for you. And so you have to have a little bit of patience when things go wrong and just know and accept that, like, sometimes there will be these bugs, disruptions, and maintenance periods, and you just need to kind of plan around them and be aware and make sure your settings and notifications are on, so that you don't miss when things happen. Another one is organizing and monitoring different automations and builds that you have. So for example, you can consider like implementing some type of monitoring software. So one of the ones that I recently learned about is called Operator. So Operator is from the No Code Ops team, and like Phil Blacken and also Claudia Cafeo and that kind of group. So right now, this is for kind of like Zapier and Airtable, but they're going to add a ton more later. And this is currently in beta, but you can kind of see what it looks like and how it's organized. And essentially, I've seen 2 demos of this particular platform. It's pretty cool. And what they're basically addressing as far as like an issue for people who have different automations is that what they found is normally people would have either in like an Airtable like sheet or in like an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet of some kind, all of the different automations that they created, like where it is, and then like what's the status and who made it and when they edit it and what does it do and so on and so forth. So what they wanted to do was make that process that was very manual automatic. So all you have to do is connect your Zapier account and your Airtable account, and it's going to read all of the different automations that you have and all of the different steps along the way. And it's going to let you know if there's any error or if there's any possible error and like what the dependencies are and things like that. So you can kind of see that all of your automations synced in one place. You can tag and organize and see those dependencies all from this kind of discover page. And it's going to go through, if you want to check out this demo, just go to nocodoops.com/operator. But it's just to say, like, to have the idea of wanting to keep track of all of these different automations so that if anything happens, you get an alert, or you can see this one also, you can see like who the last person was to edit something and what did they do, and so on and so forth. And I think they're also going to have something that makes it to where they give you suggestions about how you could improve it and things like that. So consider having some type of software that helps you organize and monitor all of your different automations, and you can kind of tell whether or not something is working and so on. Another one is going to be remain. So remain up to speed on changes and updated on the latest version. So one of the things you can do for this is around so there's kind of 2 pieces here. The first is to subscribe to the newsletters of the platforms that you use. So like if you use Airtable, or if you use Gavel, or if you use Zapier, if you use Airtable, if you use any of these different like tools, software, and so on, then I highly recommend that you subscribe to their newsletter, because they're often letting you know about product updates, and those product updates can change or influence how you set something up. So I think that's really important. And the other one is keeping updated to the latest version of the platform or block or whatever else. Part of the reason I say this is I was using a tool where I was collecting information from like kind of a form, and if somebody was like interested, kind of like an inquiry form. And I had it set up to where like the information would get sent to my email address. And so with that one, I got a new lead that came in through that form, and some of the information was missing from the email, and I was like, no, because I couldn't tell like what the person's name and email was, which are like the 2 most critical pieces of information. And so so I was like trying to figure out what happened, why didn't it come through? And it turns out I was not like on the latest updated block for this particular block type. So just keep up to date with all of your different pieces so that you can not miss out on lead opportunities. I actually ended up having my assistant do some detective work to find this person, and they did. So we were able to connect eventually, but it just was a little bit unfortunate that we had to go through this whole investigation process just because I wasn't up to date on the platform. So that's something that you should consider as well. And then the last one is alert. So alert anyone affected preemptively. So one of the things I always consider is like, I would rather be the one who like breaks the ice and reaches out to someone to say, hey, just to let you know, this system is down right now. We're going to have it back up right away, as soon as possible, than to have someone try to like go into their account and do something and then hit an error thinking that the platform is not working or that you as the person who used the platform did something wrong. So I would rather you just preemptively let somebody know, so you can just kind of address it head on. So in summary, for these different tips around navigating kind of setup and maintenance considerations when you're dealing with automation, and the main tip just being don't just set it and forget it. Just think about these 5 tips, which are understand, accept, and plan, review, organize, and monitor, remain up to speed on changes in the latest version of a platform, and alert anyone affected preemptively. One more thing I will say is that when you're doing things that are templatized and automating things like templates and things like that, know that any copy of it, so anytime you use it in the future, if you don't set it up perfectly the first time, and then you continue to use it without reviewing and looking back on it or doing proper like testing, then you could be duplicating errors and perpetuating errors all the time. And this mostly has to do, in my case, I'm thinking of like document templates, for example. So if you go through your template and you have a spelling error, for example, I used to do a lot of really long document packages for automate different like packages for an attorney. And so when I was going through it, sometimes people would forget to remove certain information because it's a really long document and they're trying to prepare it for automation, but they might miss something. So I would always have the practice, even if it was like 70 pages long, I would read every single line of it because I wanted it to be perfect. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for a lot more work in the future. So, and that kind of was coming and helpful for me being an attorney. So I can also see what they're trying to do and what they're trying to say here and where something might not actually fit in that particular piece. So I would go through and read from top to bottom, every single page, every single line, and say, okay, this doesn't make sense here. And I would ask for clarification before we tried to automate it, and not just blindly look for the places where there's, a little square bracket to say like, okay, this is where we're changing in for the client's name or the decedent's name or whatever else. So just keep that in mind as well, that when you templatize or automate a template and you don't do it perfectly the first time, you can end up perpetuating an error if you don't go through and adequately make sure that you're doing it properly. So these are my tips for today. I know it's a little bit shorter, but I just wanted to do a quick little, 20 to 30 minute review of this particular topic. It's very important to kind of consider these different tips, and I hope that was useful. So I'm just going to go over a few announcements, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to connect. So for today, we were doing an episode of Wednesday Build, but this is live every Wednesday. So feel free to join me next week. I'll share the topic in a moment. I also put out new issues of Code Word Hex every Tuesday, which is a lot more tutorial based. So it's a how to do something, usually in Gavel or in other tools that I use as well. I also have certification courses in Gavel, so at the basic, silver, gold, and gold test out levels. So feel free to check those out at cormamacademy.com. We also have courses in software and Airtable, Go Full Page, with more to come. And we have a community called Cormam Global where you can connect with different people from around the world who are also interested in technology and no-code development. And there's also a very active Gavel Slack group if you want to join that, and it's free as well. So thank you so much for those of you that are with me live, and for those of you that are on the recording, hello. So we'll be meeting again next Wednesday, the 8th of November at 10 a.m. Pacific time. I will be traveling, so I'm going to be going to Scotland that day, but I should still be able to do this live. And if not, I will do a pre-recording and then post it. And we're going to be talking about undefended openness to learning, a lifelong pursuit. I heard this phrase like in a book, or I was like listening to a book on Audible or reading a book or watching something, and I just loved this phrase of like undefended openness to learning. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, how we can maintain a sense of openness to learning, and how we can have that be a lifelong pursuit. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or via email at brittany@cramam.pro. And then for any inquiries relating to Gavel's law school program, if you want to chat about that, you can email me at brittany@gavel.io. So that is all for today, and I will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.